have the Pledge of Allegiance. This time.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would love us to have, in light of what we saw that happened to our fellow citizens in Texas, I want us to have a moment of silence and prayer for them. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
At this time, we have public comments. We have two people, Gabby Murillo. Okay.
Do I need to state my address?
Yes.
Okay. Gabby Morello, 2623 Creek Trail Drive in Sanford.
You've got
Yes.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Before I express one of my concerns, I want to tell you guys I appreciate everything that you do. I know you get a lot of negativity. I attended the public policy where Dr. Bryan spoke about more than a diploma, and I learned a lot, and I hope to be an advocate for you guys and for our progressing school system. But with that being said, I do have a concern, and it didn't even concern me until today. I have 3 small children that go to an elementary school here, and I dropped them off, and I knew it was election day, but it didn't really hit me until I dropped them off that it was a municipal election, so the schools were open. And especially with the recent events in Texas, I just felt very uneasy about driving away and leaving them there. I honestly wanted to sign them out. So I called the office and I just asked if they had any preventative measures or if there was something I didn't know about that was implemented as an additional officer, standing guard at the gym door, or some kind of system. And she said, no, they did not, but that was a countywide thing. So I called the school board and I spoke with, it might have been your assistant, and talked to her about it, and she was very helpful. And I told her I would be coming here tonight to express my concern. I called the Wake County Board of Education just to see if they had already implemented something. I think they have about 12 municipalities. They do not close their schools for that, but they do have additional officers at the school. So I know safety is the number one concern for all of you, as it is every parent. My thoughts were to make the national election calendar year just throughout, even with municipal elections. If that can't be done, I would really like to see an additional officer standing at that door. When I went to vote today, there were just the volunteers in the gym, and that concerns me just because it's not only the possibility of a shooting, but we have cases where parents are estranged from their children, and maybe they could take that as an opportunity to come in and make our children unsafe. Before I called anyone, I was going to post something on Facebook just to see if it was a concern of anyone else. And then I thought, that's not a good idea, because what if people don't know there aren't additional measures, and then it gets an idea. So I did not do that. But I did want to bring this concern to you guys today, and I hope that it is a topic that you will discuss for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Jim Woman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Superintendent. School board members, I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you tonight. My name is Jim Womack. I live at 1615 Boone Trail Road here in Sanford, North Carolina. As chairman of the Lee County Republican Party and as a taxpaying citizen of Lee County, I remain concerned that several problems continue to persist in Lee County, which are challenges to our school system. First, most recent EVA scores and school report cards do not reflect movement in the right direction for many of our school system. I congratulate Lee Early College and Greenwood Elementary School for exceeding growth standards this year. However, these two schools for sure showed marked improvements, but 3 of our middle schools actually had a downturn in performance this year in growth. All 3 are either not meeting growth expectations or dangerously close to not meeting them. Something measurable or definable has to be done to reverse those downtrends. In my observation of school board meetings and the superintendent's stated programs to improve this county's performance, I see very little that promises to improve the performance of these schools. An accomplished general once told me that hope is not a method. You can hope we get better, but until you do something that will improve the performance across all middle schools, they will continue to underperform, at least underperform their potential. Next, I'm concerned about how poorly our school system looks on Zillow.com and other sites, which parents look up before making decisions about where to move their families. There isn't an address in Lee County where at least 2 of those 3 schools listed are marginal or failing to achieve reasonable standards. How does one expect to attract middle or higher income families to move to Lee County if we can't do better? And especially when the counties around us like Chatham County and Moore County look so much better on paper than we do. Families just won't choose to move here, at least the ones that can afford to do differently. For over 5 years, I have strongly suggested that Lee County schools come out of the shadows about their objectives and plans for attaining higher level scores. The county strategic plan and the Lee County school system strategic plan, when you can find it on your website, have very little that's measurable indicated to make our schools better. How do you expect to get better if you can't make measurable plans to make changes and you don't even identify what specific objective improvements you have on target for next year? Business as usual is not getting it done, and it's just smart strategic planning to do that. It helps us also to hold you accountable for achieving the goals that you set for yourselves. If you don't put goals out there, how can we hold you accountable? Finally, I remain concerned about the lack of transparency and the presence of backroom deals being made to expend taxpayer money on major contracts like the school system's benefits plan and the school construction projects. I'm out of time, but I'd be glad to share more information about my concerns with that in the future. Sustained marginal performance in our schools will not get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we want to the vision of Lee County Schools, and then you put it down.
Mr. Chairman, the vision statement of our school system is as follows. Lee County Schools, in partnership with the community, will provide challenging learning experiences for students in a safe and supportive environment. We are committed to academic excellence, technological innovations, social responsibility, and lifelong learning. Our success will be demonstrated by the achievement of our students and their positive participation in society.
Code of Ethics for School Board Members, Policy 2120. The board recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the board must adhere to an accepted code of ethics in order to improve public education. Members of the Lee County Board of Education should avoid conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board. Avoid the solicitation and or acceptance of gifts in return for advice or assistance on matters concerning the operation of the business of the board. Avoid the misuse of public funds. Avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and avoid making confidential information public. The board accepts the Code of Ethics established by the North Carolina School Boards Association.
Thank you. What's next on our agenda tonight is the approval of the agenda. I'd like a motion for the approval of the agenda, please.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda of 11/7/2017.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. The next thing is approval of the minutes of the last meeting, 10/10/2017.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the minutes of October 10th, 2017.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you. At this time, we will have the chairman's report. I also know that I will not be able to meet before the Veterans Day. So I want to thank all our veterans who are in attendance. If you are a veteran and you are sitting here or you are in attendance, we want to recognize. Can you raise your hand if you're a veteran here? Yeah. Thank you all for your service and for what you do for our country, and we appreciate everything that you're doing. At the same time, I want to recognize all the press that are with us, Noah from Sanford Herald, and our representative from Fort Bragg. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you all. And if you're here and I didn't recognize you, you are a distinguished guest. Thank you for coming. At this time, I also want to tell the board that some of our board members will be attending. Some of our board members will be attending the next North Carolina School Board Association meeting. So, and we will be thinking of you when you go. And we have also San Lee Middle School recognized as our demonstration school for AVID this past month, and a lot of good things happen in our school system. So I just want to tell every one of us that we're proud of our schools for what the teachers are doing and for what our students are doing. So I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of the Board of Education, I want to say thank you for all that the staff and students are doing to achieve the goal that is set for this school system. Thank you. At this time, I would like to recognize the superintendent for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chairman Akinosho. I'd like to ask Dr. Jim Atkinson to come forward, please, for the Clean School of the Month.
Good evening. It is also a pleasure to be here for Veterans Day. I also want to say congratulations and thank you for all the hard work that the veterans have done for our country also. At this time, I'd like to recognize San Lee Middle School for the Clean School of the Month Award. They're back on the throws as far as winning the award. So Ms. Bridges, if she would come up and recognize her staff. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for recognizing San Lee today as Clean School of the Month. And I have with me tonight a couple of our wonderful custodial team, Freddie Atkinson, and I have Alice McKeever, and I appreciate all that they do. They are there early in the morning to open the doors for us, keeping our school clean, and driving our buses every day to get those wonderful children to and from school. We appreciate all that they do, and I want to give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Dr. Atkinson. Thank you, San Lee. Our Extra Effort Award winner could not be with us this evening, so we will have two next month to award. And then with our accountability update, I will sort of preface that update to reiterate what Mr. Akinosho said about our national demonstration site at San Lee Middle School, our AVID program. It was a wonderful event. Very appreciative that the Mayor Mann was willing to pass a resolution to honor San Lee throughout the city on that day. And also very grateful that Amy Dalrymple, Chair of the County Commissioners, was also there to speak. And also we had several board members there as well. It was a very good day. And as we've said before and tried to highlight for folks, 3% of schools in the country receive this recognition, and San Lee is only the 5th school in North Carolina to receive it. So I think kudos to Principal Bridges and her staff. It's truly a staff award and recognition of the hard work of our students there as well. It's a very long process, 2 years, lots of different people in to visit and see not only what's going on sort of on a big picture level, but also classroom to classroom, day-to-day operations and how students work and succeed every day there. So we're very proud of Sand Lake Middle School for that. Accountability update. We've been having lots of meetings with our principals and teachers regarding progress during the course of this year, looking at data, and we are trying to put in certainly support for things that we're already doing well, and also trying to continue to improve areas that we think need to be improved. And a lot of people working really hard to support that right now. Very, very pleased with our effort. As someone said to me the other day, it's November and the fall has flown by, and we recognize that and have tried to have a very high sense of urgency to continue to improve as a school district. And very proud of the efforts of our teachers, administrators, and staff. And we'll always say that their efforts are top-notch and that they will continue to be committed to improvement. And we thank them for those efforts. On that note, Mr. Akinosha, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. At this time, I want to go to our committee report, and I will go first to Dr. Livingston.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. The Middle School Curriculum and Instructions Committee met on Wednesday, October the 11th at East Lee Middle School. Sanley Betsy Bridges, Wesley Patricia Williams, and East Lee Frank Thompson presented their school's improvement plan. A copy of each plan is on file at the central office for review. Sanley Middle School has been distinguished as the National Demonstration School, which is a national place of teaching and learning for other schools to come and visit to see how to implement best practices, and AVID, which stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. Sanley Middle School is among the 3% of schools in the nation to receive this high honor. I personally want to congratulate the principal, teachers, and all the staff in their efforts and continued work in reaching this goal. The next middle school C&I committee meeting will be scheduled on Wednesday, December the 6th at 3:30 at Sanley Middle School. The Elementary Curriculum and Instructions Committee met on Wednesday, October the 25th at J. Glenn Edwards at 3:30. All of the elementary principals gave their report on their school improvement plans. A copy of each plan is on file at the central office for review. The next elementary C&I meeting is scheduled for January the 10th, 2018 at BT Bullock. The high school Curriculum and Instructions Committee will meet November the 15th at Lee County High School. Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you. This time we'll have a facility and technology F&T.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Smith, yes.
The Facilities and Technology Committee met on October the 24th at 4 p.m. in the afternoon as advertised. The first item on our agenda was a Greenwood Elementary School force main change order. This refers to the wastewater treatment system at Greenwood School. It was a consensus of the committee to approve the Greenwood Elementary School force main change order in the amount of $24,203. Per policy 9030, unless otherwise prohibited by statute or regulation, the superintendent or designee is authorized to approve change orders involving a additive or deductive sum up to $90,000, so long as funding for the change order is available within the established project budget. A copy of the change order will be shared with the board in the FYI section of our next meeting agenda. The second item on our agenda was the 2017 Carpentry House. On August 14, 2017, Bonnie Fashee was the highest bidder in the amount of $72,000 for the purchase of the 2017 Carpentry Project House, and deposited her check in the amount of $7,200 as required by the terms of the sale. On October the 12th, 2017, the board accepted Mrs. Fashee's bid of $72,000 and approved the sale of the 2017 Carpentry Project House to her. Mrs. Fashee has not complied with her bid, and on October the 10th, 2017 notified Mr. Hart, CTE Director, she would not comply with her offer to purchase the house. It was a consensus of the committee to authorize Mr. Hart to negotiate with the second highest bidder, Tommy Smith, for his bid of $66,500. If Mr. Smith agrees to purchase the carpentry project house for the sum of $66,500, Mr. Hart is authorized to accept his offer on behalf of the Lee County Board of Education and close the sale upon receipt of the money. Further, the board will ratify the sale at the November 7th, 2000 meeting, which is tonight, and I understand from Mr. Hart that that deal has gone through, it has been accepted, and that will be under new business. The committee at the moment deferred consideration of Bonnie Fashi's request to refund her $7,200 deposit, which I understand would be considered as earnest money. We received a brief report from W.B. Wicker School Project from the superintendent, and he informed us that Mr. Height is working on the design, and of course we heard that design last evening. The next F&T committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November the 28th at 4 p.m. on the second floor of the conference room.
Thank you. Does that conclude your?
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The next thing we have on the agenda is the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met on October the 19th. We had two items on our agenda. The first was a lengthy and impassioned presentation by, was that adequate, by Charlotte Johns. And Mrs. Johns addressed the committee on the substandard pay set for classified employees. That would be teacher assistants / bus drivers. She passed out handouts to the committee, which we reviewed. She asked the committee to consider the following: review the current pay scale for teacher assistants, rethink the current supplement percentage for classified staff, evaluate the current reimbursement policy for bus drivers regarding the cost of their license, and address the locations where buses are housed and the location where the drug testing is conducted. And we decided, the committee, to refer that to staff for their input on what, if anything, can be made, changes that can be made to these conditions. We also received a report from Kelly Jones, our finance director. Ms. Jones updated the committee on the various changes that are being experienced in the current financial software provider. She gave a brief history of the current product and informed the committee of the need to possibly move to an updated Windows-based project within the near future. She noted there will be a line item included in the total cost for the new system within the new budget cycle, so we'll possibly approach that in January as we begin our budget considerations. The Finance Committee does not have a set meeting for December, but there will be a meeting in January, and that will be announced as soon as that's set. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. At this time, we'll listen to the Policy Committee, Ms. Bowen.
The Policy Committee met on October 17th, and it was a doozy. It was one of those 2-hour-long ordeals that we have officially recovered from now. We had some 70 policies on for review. To our benefit, about 30 of those were technicalities and corrections of wording, and then the rest were substantive change. So there is quite a bit of reading material for the board members because we have quite a number of these on for first reading. So please take the time over the next month to read through these and help us to ensure that we're getting the best possible policies out for our staff. Other than that, there is one policy we all have on the new business tonight that requires action tonight. So when we get there, Mr. Chair, we will be asking for a suspension of the second reading of the policy so that we can move forward. It is one that's put out by the state that requires us to nominate and seat a committee of business people, basically, a business advisory council. And in order for this board to have some input on it, it had to kind of go through tonight. so that we have a month in which to consider who we might want on said council and get them nominated. So that is one little bit of a difference in our movement tonight. So we have first reading on some 70 policies, and then policy 2670 is going to come up for first reading and a vote tonight. That concludes the report of the policy committee.
Thank you. At this time, I want a motion for the consent agenda if we have no question about the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Thank you. At this time, we go to the new business. The carpentry project house. Gary. Mr. Hart.
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for their patience in this matter, bringing it back before the board. As Dr. Smith said, I was successful in speaking with Tommy Smith.
Yes.
He does want the house, and he has paid us in full as of November the 2nd. So we have full payment on the house. And we would like to go ahead and move forward and turn over ownership to Mr. Smith.
Thank you for the good work you do on that.
Thank you, sir.
And we appreciate everything because when the report came back that the other person declined, we just don't want to have a backlog of, I know you're building another house now, you?
We don't want a neighborhood behind
Yes.
Lee County High School.
Very true.
We don't want to have properties we can't sell, so I appreciate everything that you're doing, and we want to say thank you for
Mr.
you and your group.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the bid of Mr. Tommy Smith for the carpentry house.
We have a motion,
Second.
we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you. The next thing we have is the board policy first reading.
Mr. Chair, do we need to address the issue of the earnest money?
I think we need to do that.
The feeling of the committee was that we should probably address that at the committee level at our next finance committee meeting and come up with a proposal for the board.
Okay.
There's some extenuating circumstances that we need to discuss.
Maybe when we do that, we'll have to have the counsel of our lawyer, our attorney, to talk to us in a closed session to ask questions and everything. If that's okay. Mr. Love, is it okay for us to discuss it with you in closed session?
Well,
No.
I think the committee's decision was that they would take this matter up.
Refer it back to finance?
At its next meeting,
Okay.
and that's what I think.
January?
We need to
Yes.
get some
Okay.
information regarding Ms. Fashi's situation.
Okay, so we don't have to rush it. We just leave it until
That was the way we left it in committee, Mr. Chairman.
that is wonderful by me.
Shall I continue then with the first reading of the policies?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't kidding. It's a small novel, so y'all please bear with me. I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the first reading of the following policies. Policy 1510/4200/7270. Policy 3110, 3230/7330. Policy 3300. Policy 3460. Policy 3530, 3540, 3620, 4040/7310, 4240/7312, 4525/6125, Policy 4600, 6321, 6340, 6410, 6420/8720, 6430/8730, Policy 6440, 6442, 6450, 6520, 6560, 7130, 7240, 7510, 7530, 7810, 7900, 7930, 7940, 8210, 8510, 9110, 9115, and 9120, and 9400 on first reading.
Okay. Thank you. You have a
That's it.
motion? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? I don't think anybody will oppose what's handed to us. Thank you.
to our meeting.
And then, Mr. Chair, we have this separate policy. Hopefully everyone read this in their FYI packet. This was reviewed in committee. This is a requirement of the state that we establish a business advisory council provided in policy 2670. And in order for this to be adopted per the state guidelines, I believe it has to be seated by January 1st of 2018. We'll need to pass this tonight so that we can nominate our members as a board in December in order to have this go to the state in January. So at this time, I move that the provisions of policy 2420 be suspended in order to meet the deadline set by the North Carolina General Assembly for the appointment of members of the Business Advisory Council as provided in policy 2670.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oppo- So the motion is approved.
And then the second motion, I move that the Lee County Board of Education adopt policy 2620 without the second reading.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I say 2620? 2670 is what I meant to say.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Based on the suspension of that and what we have before us from the state legislator and from what Ms. Bowen have said, I would just want to refer that work to Gary Hart, who has been working with a lot of our businesses, and the CNI committee with Ms. Livingston and Dr. Kobo. Both of you, I want both of you and your committee to bring a recommendation to the board so that we can discuss the recommendation in December, because we have a time crunch here. So that's what I would do, since we have a standing committee and CNI is always working with businesses and all of that. So just talk to your teachers and your committee members and let's have a recommendation from them. I don't want this to be politicized. I want it to be people who have been working with our schools before. So that's where we will go from there, and then you bring the recommendation to the board, and then we'll go from there. The next thing after that will be WB Wicker School Project. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly very appreciative of the Board of Commissioners agreeing to have a joint meeting last night for the presentation of the Wicker School plans. Asked Mr. Height to come back tonight. He kindly was able to be with us this evening, and he's certainly here and available to answer any questions regarding the plans from last night. I thought Ms. Carlisle's presentation of the process we've used to gather feedback for Mr. Height was done very well, and certainly very appreciative of Mr. Height's presentation, which I thought was very thorough in outlining the school. So, Mr. Height, if you'd like to come to the podium, if you have anything you want to add, or open it up for any board members for any discussion or questions.
I think we covered it pretty well last night, and you were able to distribute the slides. We had an excellent comment about parking, and we've already incorporated additional parking at the rear of the site on our preliminary plan, and we're ready at whatever time the plan is approved to submit these plans to the appropriate authorities so that they can begin their review process.
Mr. Height, I just want one question for you. Do you have any concern about this not being approved? Do you have any concern if we're going to run into any problem?
No, I have no concerns.
If you can recall in your mind, can you tell us, tell this board, how many schools have you designed before? How many schools you've worked on?
We've designed several hundred school projects.
Several hundred schools.
Yes.
So ours will not be unique. So you've done a lot of
Your
schools.
project is very unique. It might even be the most unique we've ever done.
Okay, that's good.
And that's a good thing. I mean, it's the second project that we've done that's a combination of a historic property. And it truly is unique and a kind of a landmark project for us, and I'm sure for Lee County too.
Tell this audience what are the uniqueness of it, if you can. Just summarize some of the uniqueness.
Well, I think from the standpoint that we're taking a building that's really iconic in the area and of such historical significance that it was placed on the National Register of Historic Places because it was a school. Then it was taken from a school for another purpose. And now the fact that you've seen fit to reclaim that site as a school and really not just as a high school, but for an elementary school with a special emphasis on the things that we want our young kids to be exposed to, the science and the arts, all the things to do with technology, all the modern programs. To combine those on one site, to me, is a fascinating and unique proposition.
Thank you. I don't know if we have any other board member that wants to ask or contribute something to.
Mr. Hyde, again, with the additional parking, I know there's been a lot of conversation. Could you go into more detail onto how you will add additional parking for the gym when it's being used, or for the auditorium if it's being used as well?
Do we have the slides available? Okay, well, yeah, we do.
I know they're in paper form.
Can we project that site plan?
There it is. There it is, right there.
Okay. So if we could move to the slide that shows either the front rendering or even the rear rendering.
You have control.
Okay, so I can.
Yes, sir.
Here. Okay. Well, here's a picture. You can see there's some green space between the drive and the rear of the property where the fence is. That space is sufficient simply to shift that road back to the east to that property line and include another double row of parking. So we've got, I mean, it's like it's already been done. It took like 30 minutes to make that change on the plan for however many parking spaces you'd need. It's easy enough to add up to 100 spaces back there.
So the way I'm understanding you is that you shifted the entire road back, or just the road behind that parking lot?
The entire road back.
So the new parking lot will stretch from side to side the entire way, or just?
If I can just move up the point. I'm not on the microphone. When that road moves back, you take this parking lane here and just copy it over here.
So it'd only be the width of that current parking lot. So the new space on the other side is just going to be back to green space, or can it also be included in the parking lot? The smaller square.
The smaller square.
No, on over to your left. Yes. If you move that road back, is that making the playground bigger?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so to make the playground bigger.
So that's a plus.
Okay.
I consider that a plus.
Is that going to throw our budget off by any means?
It's not going to be free. So yes, it's going to be part of our, the estimate that we prepare for the design development.
But still within, you said there were
phase.
no concerns, so still within the realms that we provided?
Within
With-
contingency.
Okay.
Yes.
He said it last night that with the budget that it will be accommodated what we want if there is any
Well,
changes to the
we're predicting a cost now. The market is changing, so we'll keep you updated with the information that we get from the contracting community prior to getting the project put out for bid. So we'll give you the best information that we can get from the market before we do that. And if any adjustments need to be made, we can talk about it at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, for your response. Appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Heights, I have a question for you. In reference to the buildings that you've done before, and I know this one's unique in all aspects as well, but this one has an emphasis on science.
Yes.
So my question is, how many buildings have you done before that had the emphasis on the science, since there's a different criteria? I didn't see it in the slides, it's where the labs can be located and the safety, and that falls into something totally different with DPI. My question is, have you done the buildings before that had science as an emphasis? Not that you can't do it, but have you
No,
done it?
absolutely. Absolutely. We just completed a K-8 school in Bluffton, South Carolina, that has STEM labs for the elementary. STEM labs for elementary is relatively new. It's been in middles and highs for a while, but yes, we have.
Okay.
Mr. Height, I know that the one concern with that property is just simply the size. And are there constraints, I know in residential construction, there are constraints of how much green space you have versus what you have under concrete or anything. Is that the same with school construction, or are we even close to impinging on that percentage of green space?
No, there is sufficient green space or ratio of covered space to green space.
Because that was the only concern, is there's just it's a landlocked kind of position, and so, but there's sufficient, obviously no room for expansion, but
There is.
there's sufficient green
There
space
is
to.
sufficient green space.
That was the only concern I thought about last night after expanding parking, is what impact that would have by putting it under asphalt.
On the question about Church Street to Carthage, did you happen to look at that? Was that correct?
I did not. I really don't have enough information about that to make a judgment or an evaluation at this time. I mean,
When
that's
the-
something we need to look at.
Jimmy, when the project first started, Mr. Height, the mayor and everybody said they would love to open that up. I don't think we'll have a problem. You will have a problem if that is necessary to be
Well,
done. I remember, Dr. Smith, you were in the meeting too when we talked about that.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chairman. We
Many
did
years-
have
a
a
few years
discussion.
ago.
There's no restriction on intercepting the loop that we've got designed around the school that I am aware of. The concern that you would have would be adding another point of entry.
Correct.
We have two, and you need two, but the question would be, do you want three? And the way that the current auto queuing is configured, there's really no place to break in line the way that it's designed. So if you intercept that, then that's another point of control that you need to manage.
It's a safety issue as well.
Unsafe.
Ingress and egress.
Yes.
Could it be used as a service entrance and not have a parking and not an attendant located at it?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe as a service entrance, we wouldn't have to be staffed or.
Absolutely.
Especially to relieve traffic coming
Absolutely.
in and out. So.
And we'd be happy to do that. We need a few days to look at it.
Okay. If we have no further questions,
I just
somebody.
have one question. I know that the student capacity is 969.
Yes.
What happens if we have to move that upwards to 1,000 or 1,050 in the future? Is there opportunity for growth within the buildings itself?
We'd need to pull the shoehorn out. Let's look at it again. Do I just hit this?
There it is.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay. If you can see that, here's the security fence basically circumscribes our property. It's within 5 feet of our property. And we've got a loop that we're stretching out to that eastern boundary.
Rob, okay.
We're stretching out that eastern boundary. We're adding parking, we're increasing the playground. This building is sort of at its limit. Thank you. The new building is sort of at its limit. Wicker itself is at its limit.
Is it impending?
Is there space to add on to? I would have to say Probably not. So I think that this is what we would call the build-out of this particular project. It wouldn't be wise to try to add additional classrooms.
I hate to say the words, but mobile units.
Right.
I didn't want to say there, but there's not even space for them, it doesn't appear.
Not unless you put them on the playground.
Okay.
Playhouses for the kids.
Thank you. If we have no further question from
Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank Mr. Height, realizing the uniqueness of this project and all its vagaries that go into it. I'd like to compliment you on a really nice design, and we appreciate the work and time that you put in on this project.
Thank you.
I don't know if Superintendent has anything to tell us or to say.
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Thank you very much. From our discussion after the meeting yesterday, the Board of Commissioners said, the chairperson and some of them said they were waiting on the school board to make their decision, and they were waiting on us. Since we have a time that we need to start, I would love a motion to go forward, approve the design that was presented to us by Mr. Hyde.
Mr. Chair, I would like to approve the design by the architecture.
The motion, okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve the architecture design by Mr. Height and his associates.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you all. We'll move forward with we can send to the commissioners that our board have approved. Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is we go to closed session. So I will ask Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, and not a public record under North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318.11A1.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we're in closed session.
To approve the personnel report presented by Assistant Superintendent John Conway.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the administrative contract presented by Mr. Conway as well.
Second?
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And
Motion is approved.
And Mr. Chair, as always, I make the most important motion of the night, motion to adjourn.
All
Second.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. God bless you.